Hello, it's Cheryl here. Now, I am coming in a couple of minutes early today for Knit and Matters because Facebook has done some updates of the page and I really want to make sure that it's working okay. So just bear with me. I'm checking on my screen here that this is going to come up. Oh, it has! Wonderful, wonderful. Well, that has made me feel so much better. It's always a scary moment when I click on the computer to see what you can see, and then it doesn't necessarily show me the same thing. So that seems to have worked really well. So I'm very pleased about that. If somebody could just let me know that you can hear me okay, that would be wonderful. And we do have a moment or two before we really start. But anyway, hope you're all well. I was watching some of the Olympics, of course, and it was wonderful to see the British diver Tom Daley knitting in the stands when he wasn't diving and practicing. And I think it's wonderful. He says he's a self-confessed fibre artist, and it helps to keep him relaxed and focus him, and it's wonderful. And I was prompted to post. I posted about that, and I also put a post on about a sweater, an Olympic sweater that I did way back in 1988 in my store. Yeah, people seem to like that. For those of you that were asking about the pattern, I'm still searching for it. I know I have it, but it's packed up somewhere. But anyway, enough of that. So just give it a moment or two. Let me just refresh the page. I'd love to know if someone can hear me okay. That isn't coming up, but not to worry. I'm just going to assume that you can hear me unless somebody says otherwise. Let me just see if I can see it coming up on my phone. And maybe nobody's here yet, but that's okay. I came in early just so that I was prepared. Okay. Oops. Oh, you can hear me, Karen. Thank you so much for letting me know. So Karen's watching, Darlene and Betty. Thank you very much for letting me know that you can hear. That's wonderful. It's not coming up on the computer, but I can see it on the phone. So that's great. And it is now 7. So we will start. So welcome indeed to Knit and Matters. Thanks so much for taking the time to join me, whether you're watching live now or the replay later. I really do appreciate you taking the time, and I'm delighted that you're here. So I'm Cheryl Lampard. I'm an image consultant. My company is Star Matters International. And throughout my life, my two passions have been sewing and knitting. I used to also be the proud owner of a yarn store in Brighton, and I absolutely love teaching people how to knit. And I love it. I loved it then, I love it now, perhaps more so because by this wonderful medium of social media, I can actually reach more people and teach them the wonder of this fabulous fibre art that we call knitting. Now, I'm on my own again, operating the camera this week. So for those of you that are wondering why I just don't get another camera to do the overhead shots, well, it's actually not the camera. I've tried several and they all work beautifully on online platforms when I'm teaching, but they don't all work or play so nicely with Facebook Lives. I'm still working on it, and I think it's actually just a question of some switching software. So I'm investigating that now, and trust me, you'll be the first to know when I've cracked it. But in the meantime, you just have to bear with me if you don't mind having the patience as I move the camera. And so this is the bit that you would look away if you're feeling a little dizzy. So do ask questions as we go along. And if I can see them, I will answer them. If not, I will respond as soon as possible afterwards. Okay, so I'm now going to get up and try and move this camera so it's in a place where you can actually see what my hands are doing. And Dawn is watching. That's wonderful. Thank you. Let me just see where we are, and I just want to make sure that that's coming up live in the same position. It is a slightly different position because it's over my shoulder, but that's all good. Okay, I think we're good there, so I'm going to carry on. Oh, thank you all so much for... Dawn is watching. Patricia, hi. And if this is the first time you've watched, then welcome indeed. Welcome to you all, of course, but an extra special welcome to any newcomers, shall we say. Okay, so today it's all about alternate edgings. Ribbing is probably the first edging that most of us do, or most of us learnt with, some kind of ribbing. And it's not surprising, because it's a very useful technique. And if you're a complete beginner, I did cover the basics of ribbing in season 1, episode 2. You can find those videos on the Knitter Matters page under videos, or on our YouTube channel, our Knitter Matters YouTube channel. But we all learn ribbing for a very good reason, because ribbing lays flat. It's a stitch pattern that's really easy to remember, knit 1, purl 1, or knit 2, purl 2, and it provides a nice stretchy edge. So, you know, it'll spring back. So it's perfect for cardigans and cuffs and sock cuffs, anywhere where you need some elasticity. And there's various types of ribbing here. And you can certainly amp up. Oops, sorry, I just need to move something on the computer there. You can certainly amp up the ribbing patterns. You can do a slip stitch pattern, for example. This was from season 2, episode 2. This is a type of slip stitch pattern that we did, which I think is very effective. You can do something like a mock cable rib, which we also did in that same season 2, episode 2. And you can go back and watch those to see how those were done if you want to. Again, depends what you want it for. Right, this one is still really quite stretchy, so that's something you have to think about too. All of these that I showed earlier, of course, nice and stretchy, nice stretchy rib, which is what we want. And obviously on a bottom of a cardigan, something like that. And often you'll do the rib in a smaller size needle. Well, this one's a bit stretched out now, but trust me, when I first did that, that was nice and springy. This one, this mock cable, really pretty. It's a variation on knit 2, purl 2, but nice and stretchy. This one, and I just showed you, the slip stitch, is very decorative, not as stretchy. Okay, so you do need to think about that. And then you can go on to something really a bit more exotic, which is this 2-color or corrugated rib. Not as stretchy at all. It's much more decorative. You get a thicker rib because it's, you know, 2-stranded. So not as stretchy. So if elasticity is needed, any sort of edge with some form of ribbing is a good way to go. But you absolutely don't have to have ribbed edges. Ooh, I had a stray mitten there with this is a good example of why you would have obviously stretchiness of the cuff and around the thumb there. So anyway, you absolutely don't have to have ribbed edges. We did here in season 2, episode 25, we did a stockinette hem edge. Let me show you that one first. A stockinette hem edge. Really nice for the hem of a skirt or the bottom of a jacket. No stretch other than the knitted fabric in that, but no real stretch and spring back. So it's different edgings for different purposes. This one is a variation of the theme where, again, it's that sort of knitted in hem, but we did a picot edge on that. And those were from season 2, episode 25. If you want to go back and see any of those episodes, I'm not expecting you to remember what I've just said about them, but I'll put a note on the Knitter Matters page later so that you know which episodes they were from if you want to go back and have a look at them. So what alternatives do we have to ribbed edges? As you can see, there's quite a lot, but what alternatives do we have to ribbed edgings and hemmed seams? Well, the answer is an awful lot, because there's hundreds of options. Now, this, just showing you this, for example, this is a sleeve. This is a cardigan pattern. We did the Carefree cardi last year, or last season, I should say. I'm losing track of what year and what season in season 1. But this, for example, this sort of checkerboard pattern, when you cast on, you go straight into the pattern, and that's the stitch pattern for the whole garment. It's not intended to have stretch, but the checkered pattern stops it curling. Now, if you want a curly edge, you can do stockinette stitch or reverse stockinette stitch, and those will give you that. And sometimes they're very effective, certainly around the neck of a garment, if you just want a sort of almost casual looking, but nothing too formal or you know, it's a nice relaxed look. But let's assume we don't want a non-curling edge. And when you don't want a curling edge, when you don't want an edge that curls, you need some sort of combination of knit and purl, knit and yarn overs, or you would start with a row or two of garter stitch. Let me show you some examples. So I did here, this is a really nice, very simple edge. Now it's only curling because I didn't block it, but actually, trust me, I did two, when I cast on, I did a long tail cast on this one, and I did 2 rows of garter stitch and then went into my stockinette stitch. But what I've got here is actually a little, I haven't had time to block this, so just forgive that. But you get a very delicate little sort of ruffle. And to do this, you knit bottom up on this one. So from the bottom you knit up. It's a very pretty little edge on a hemline or a sleeve edge of a child's garment, or you could actually do something nice on a blanket, especially if it's a baby blanket. You could do a sort of a ruffled border, and certainly you can make your ruffle more full than this, but this is a very simple basic way to do a ruffle. And what you would do is you would cast on double the amount of stitches you need. You do need, for this bottom up version, you need an even number of stitches. So I think for this one I cast on 30 stitches. I worked 2 rows of garter stitch, then I worked my rows of stockinette stitch, and you can work as many as you want your ruffle to be. You probably, on a child's garment, you don't want a huge ruffle, but depending on what you're doing, if it's a blanket, then you probably want a deeper ruffle. And then you make sure you end on a right side row, so the next row coming in would be a wrong side row. And then what I did there was simply purl 2 together across that row. So if I look at the back, I put on row, I think it was row 9, I purled, no, row 10 it would have been if it's a wrong side row. I purled 2 together all across the row, so then I had just 15 stitches, and then I carry on my stockinette stitch or whatever your pattern is for the rest of the garment. So very simple. Now if you wanted to do this the other way, shall we say, top down, so that you've knitted your piece depending on what your pattern is, and then you wanted to do some kind of ruffle, well, you can certainly do that. All you do then is, and actually you could do that with any number of stitches. That's not reliant on just an even number. So whatever number of stitches you could have, instead of decreasing, you're going to be increasing. And to do that, when you get to where you want to start your ruffle, you would knit into the front and back of each stitch across the row. Okay, so on the bottom up version, I purled 2 together across the row to get my reduced number of stitches. If you're going sort of top down and you're doing it as a finished edging, you would, and I would do that on a knit row, then you would, well, you would if you got a knit into the front and back, but it's just easier to do it on a knit row than a purl row. And increase, so you're doubling up however many stitches you had, then knit the amount of the length of your ruffle that you want, and then bind off. Super simple, very effective. Now here's another little version of this, and I think this is super pretty. Again, forgive the fact that it's curling a bit. It's not because of the stitch, it's just I didn't block it. So this is a version where what I've done, when I get to, I still did my purl 2 together, but on the very next row, which was on a knit row, I went across and did knit 2 together, then a yarn over, knit 2 together, then a yarn over. and it creates, I'm going to pull that out, it creates eyelets. I just chose to weave the ribbon through because I think it looks attractive, but let me show you so that you can see what I did. So I've got to the point in my knitting. You can see here on this purl row, I purl 2 together all across it. Okay, and now on this knit row, all I'm going to do is knit, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, and so on and so on. That will give you your eyelets when you do the return row. Or it's giving you the eyelets now, but you'll see them properly when I purl back. Okay, and let me just purl back so that you can see what that looks like. I know you've seen eyelets before, but it's never a bad thing to show you again, because the more we see something, the more we understand it. And if you haven't watched before, then, or if this is new to you, then this will be something that you can do. So sometimes I do repeat things in various episodes because I'm always aware that this may not be you may be watching for the first time. And if you are, that's wonderful. If you've seen it before, or the same idea before, which is exactly the sort of idea that we use for the picot hem that I showed you earlier on. So now you can see those little eyelets, and all I did was weave that ribbon through, and then I would continue knitting my piece. Okay, I hope that makes sense there. Okay, so that's that. Let me just rescue that needle. Okay, now what will we do now? Yes, so carrying on the eyelet theme, this is a really nice edging. It gives a really nice flat edge. It's not got any stretch in it, but we're not necessarily worried about stretchy edgings here. So again, this is bottom up, but it gives you a really nice flat edging, and you've got this gentle sort of scallops here. I haven't even blocked this, and you see I just pinned it out because it was just easy for you to see, but just the stitch, I'm not doing anything special here, but where we do these yarn overs here, make these eyelets, it just pulls that sort of center bit up, and you get that nice scalloped edge. So that could be very effective on something. Again, that would be nice maybe around a blanket. That could be very pretty around the hemline of a jacket, or just on the cuff of something. But let me show you how to do this one, because it's very effective. All I've done here is do a certain amount of what I considered would be where I wanted my edging to finish. Then I just made it bolder by putting in a row of knit stitches, but from the purl side, just to finish that off. But you could equally well just omit that and just carry on straight into your pattern. If I sort of block that out there, you can see it looks just as good if you just go straight on into your stocking stitch or whatever your pattern is. But let me show you how this is done, because it looks more complicated than it is, and I love patterns that look more complicated than they actually are. So let me show you how to do that one. Let's move that out the way. So I've just done a few rows here to get started, so you don't have to watch me casting on, but really it's super simple, and everything I've done today is super simple little techniques. Because what I want you to do is just sort of, I hope this inspires some ideas in your mind that you don't always have to use the edging that the pattern suggests, and you can change it. So we start on the right side. We're going to knit 2, yarn over, knit 2 together. Okay, then we knit 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we do a slip, slip, knit, and we knit into the back of that. I'm going to do this again in a second. Yarn over, and knit 2. And for this you need a multiple of for this design you need to cast on a multiple of 10 stitches plus 2. I've got 22 stitches here. On the bigger sample I think I had 32 stitches. Okay, so we're about to start the next little panel. So we've done our knit 2 from the previous row. Now we're going to yarn over, knit 2 together, knit 4, then we're going to do a slip, slip, knit, slip, slip, and knit into the back, yarn over, knit 2. Very simple. And I will just purl back. The second row is purl, and you just repeat those 2 rows for however long you want your edging. In fact, you could, if you had a very plain sweater, you could do the whole thing in this design if you wanted to make it a little more interesting. You could start at the bottom and make this your hemline, as it were, with that bit of that row of garter stitch that I did on my sample, and then carry on. You'd obviously have to check your gauge swatch to make sure you were coming out the size that you needed to be, but yeah, why stop necessarily at an edging? There you go. That's all there is to it. You just repeat those same rows. So that's the same as that. It's just a smaller piece. But imagine that if you decided that you could even carry on after you'd done a sort of delineation between the hemline and the rest of your knitting, or you could just carry on doing that. It would be really quite effective. But I just want you to have ideas of how you can change things very simply. Okay, so that's that one. Now, this one, I want to show you this. Let's say you don't really, you're not mad about sort of ruffles. Let's say you don't want eyelets, you're done with eyelets, you don't want that. You just really want something simple, something that's got a bit of texture. Well, this stitch, I love this stitch. This is so simple, and again, looks a little bit more complicated than it is, and I just love those, and I'm sure you do too. We are actually using yarn overs here, but we're not using yarn overs really to make a hole in this sense. It's called bamboo stitch, and I think it's really nice. I think it's very classy. I think it's a very nice edging. It's quite dense, and you get texture, and I love texture. Again, super, super simple, but imagine that sort of on the edge of the bottom hem, perhaps a very plain sweater or a jacket, or on the cuffs, as long as you don't need any stretch in it. But really nice little stitch pattern. Let me show you how to do this one. It's so simple. It's I know I keep saying that, but I'm so impressed with how simple it is. For this one, you need a multiple of 2 stitches plus 2. So, you want even numbers plus 2. So it's 10, or it's whatever it is, whatever you're knitting. I think I cast on, what did I cast on for this? 12 for this. I think I cast on, for the bigger sample, it was 22. So I've got 12 on this one. So again, super simple. Yeah, Dawn says she likes that. I do too. I think it's great. You like that one better, Dawn? Yes, I know. I do. I like this one better. Right. So, but I'm trying to just show things for different things and for different people's tastes. And I wanted to keep it simple. Okay. So with this one, the only thing you've really got to remember is, well, there's a few things to remember, but once you get the hang of the pattern, it's very simple. But for this one, it's recommended that you start with a slip stitch, but the yarn is at the back. So slip that first stitch with the yarn at back, then you're going to do a yarn over here, you're going to knit 2, and you're going to pass the yarn over those 2 stitches that you've just worked. And we're going to go along the row in the same way. So my yarn over, or yarn round needle if you're watching from the UK, same thing. knit 2 and pick up that yarn over and pull it over the 2 you've just knitted. Yarn over, knit 2. Pick up that yarn over, pull it over those 2 stitches. Yarn over, knit 2, pull the yarn over 2 stitches, yarn over, knit 2, yarn over. Okay, and then knit the last stitch. Don't do the yarn over. It's tempting to carry on and keep doing yarn overs. You only need to do the yarn over before a knit 2 because you're passing that over. If you do a yarn over here, you're going to get a hole, which you don't want. So the last stitch is going to be a knit. And when you do your purl row, now you want the yarn in front, you're going to slip that purlwise and just purl to the end. It couldn't be simpler, really. For such a really interesting pattern, it couldn't be simpler. I've made my stitches a bit tight here, so I'm just hanging on to the needle in case they slide off. Right, there we go, and purl to the end. And again, you just repeat those 2 rows. Super simple, very effective. Okay. Well, I really hope you found that useful. There's a few things, a few little techniques that you can try there if you'd like to. And there are many more. So next time you have a pattern and you're thinking, I don't really know if I want rib here. Again, you've got to consider how stretchy it needs to be. Oh, I can see that you like, some of you love that. Thank you so much. So just consider what it's got to do. If it's got to pull in again and be stretchy, then you need something that's stretchy. If it's just decorative or it's just to sort of start the garment off, then you can really choose all sorts of designs. And it doesn't have to be a design necessarily just for an edge. You know, if there's a particular stitch pattern that you like, see if that would work as an edging. Okay. Right, I'm going to move the camera back. This is the wiggly woggly bit of it again, so just bear with me. Right, here we go. Hopefully it won't be too painful for you. And then I will finish talking to you. Okay, hopefully you can, oh, I'm wobbly, I can see that, but okay, it's only for another couple of seconds. The main thing is that you could see what I was doing. I do want to say thank you to those of you that said really nice things when I showed you my certificate of achievement for the Craft Yarn Council. I haven't actually framed it yet, but I'm so happy with this. So I showed you samples last time. I was working on my level 1 certification as a certified knitting instructor. I now have my certificate and my pin, and I'm so proud about it. So I'm showing off, unashamedly showing off. I'm very happy. I'm going to do the 2nd level next, which is a bit more advanced. So I would let you know when I've submitted that one. So anyway, thank you for the kind comments when I post it on my Knitting Matters page. I did appreciate that. It's very nice of you. So, as always, this episode and all others can be found on the Knitting Matters page under the videos tab. They can certainly be found on the YouTube channel of the same name, and the whole playlist is there. It's sometimes easier to look at them on YouTube, I find, and they're all listed there. So if you are looking for this one later, this is season 2, episode 24, and as I said, later I will post on Knitting Matters the episodes that I talked about in this episode, in case you want to refer back to those for certain things. Okay, so thank you again very much for watching. I hope you found something enjoyable there, something that you can try in your knitting. So until next time, stay well, stay safe, and stay knitting. Bye bye for now.